All right, well, we're ready to kick off this Thursday edition of the SportsMax Zone with schoolboy football. The rural area Issa Water DaCosta Cup is now one game away from finding a new home after the semi-finals at the National Stadium on Wednesday evening. Both Ocho Rios and McGrath were fighting for a bit of school history, a first ever chance to play in the championship match. But it was McGrath who emphatically took their opportunity with a 6-1 thrashing led by 4 goals from Shane Pusey. Well, let's hear now from both coaches, Jermaine Thomas of McGrath, but first Vernon Peterkin of Ocho Rios High.
First, congratulations to McGrath, and I mean, they want it better than us, so I have to give it to them, and I mean, but we made some expensive errors again in defensive third. Really indisciplined stuff, and I mean, super indisciplined, and cost us, and from senior players as well. So, one of those things, and to make those mistakes here, it's very difficult, and I mean, and at this time, so.
The achievement is significant. It's a huge feat. I mean, Ben Francis last year, semi-finals 2019, and now we're in the finals of DaCosta Cup 2024. That's huge. I'm elated, and I'm sure the entire community, school community of Linstead, Treadways, the surrounding communities, of course, they're elated.
In the second semi-final, Glenmere High took on Garvey Maceo for the 3rd time this season. And even though they split wins in the first 2 matches, Glenmere still started as heavy favourites. But once again, Garvey Maceo, the Cubans, had other ideas.
So brought to you by KFC, it's finger licking good, and water, land of good and water.
As we take a look at the full-time highlights, we promise we'll be brief. As the ball was sent inside the area from Headley, the corner kick couldn't quite find nicely. And then Garvey Maceo with an attempt that's over the top. Didn't have a whole lot of goal mouth activity in this match at all. There was this opportunity though, cleared off the line. Wallace was in the right place at the right time. Yeah, making that clearance on the line. And then Murray getting a touch on that one. And more of a strong hand on this corner kick. That was going into a dangerous area. And then a couple of occasions, Watson was allowed to control inside the box and turn. That occasion, it was a shot that ended well wide. And then here is again trying to turn and managing to get the shot off, but no issues there for Garfield Tomlinson, who's looking forward to the shootout, I suspect. As there was another shot from distance, the deflected effort, and Tomlinson had to make the save there. Had to time his jump to perfection. It was our SportsMax that moment of the game. Such was the nature of the contest. And it was a difference maker. McKinley, his spot kick was saved. And then O'Rain Watson didn't have a lot of power behind it. The conversion there by Devani McIntosh. And then Jason White's attempt was seen out by Hibbert. And then the conversion by Wilton Williams. And Garvey Maceo with the win.
Those highlights are brought to you by KFC, it's finger licking good, and water, land of good and water.
As expected, contrasting emotions from both camps as we get the thoughts of Glenmere assistant coach Ashani Mullings and Garvey Maceo's Lester Hibbert.
Always a tough one, considering the rivalry. But penalty 50-50, we just have to congratulate the Garvey Maceo team and well fought Glenmere. We gave everything.
First, we have to give God thanks. because without him, this wouldn't be possible. But that's how we train, the vibe, the energy. That's how we encourage the boys as a coaching staff to stay together, to stay disciplined, to engage into every tackle. And you saw the result. That's passion.
That's fashion. Well, Dean Smith, he witnessed it all live from the National Stadium, and he joins us now in studio to share his thoughts. So, Dean, what a match, what a storyline, because I am aware that heading into this matchup, of course, Glenmuir were the favourites. Everybody felt like, okay, they're going to end the season with at least 2 trophies. Yeah, that didn't happen, and we saw the passion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to recover from the shockwaves. I'm sure many other football pundits too trying to recover from the shockwaves that result has brought. But you know, knowing the history of both two teams, it shouldn't be as surprising as it really has been, because Garvey and Maceo, their first title in schoolboy football was at the expense of Glenmuir back in 2007. So they have an age-old rivalry. And whenever rivals come together,
it's a different
level of game that you can understand. Chapo here and myself, we are involved in a rivalry. We're not talking about high school. We're talking about European football, English football as well.
What's your team?
Liverpool, of course. Is there another team? But anyway, let's focus on schoolboy football here. Yeah, so they came out really buoyed. In an interview, Lester Hibbert, he was even more pleased with the win because Glenmuir said they were going to give him 6-0.
Yeah.
And, you know, a Cuban would never accept such a statement. So they were really gunning for a good match. And I think they really structured how they wanted to play extremely well. And that was the result.
And what would you say was the massive difference between the two teams? Because for me, it's always shocking when a team, you know, is very dominant throughout a season. You know, you feel as if they're unbeatable and they're very confident. They're doing all the right things, Dean. And then in a match that matters the most, and we're going to come to that discussion about, you know, the teams that made it to the Champions Cup semi-finals and stuff, not making it, lending to the topic about overwork of the players and all of that. But what was that massive difference maker in your mind on the day?
A few factors. One, I think, was an excellent defensive setup from Garvey Maceo that really limited Glenmuir the ability to build up as they normally would try to build up. Now, one of the things that Glenmuir did, especially in the first half, they had a back 3 and a double pivot, so 3+2 in the build-up. And Garvey Maceo had 2 persons pressing them, their forwards, and 2 midfielders who really cause a cover shot. So they weren't able to build up through the middle as Glenmuir normally does.
Okay.
When Garvey Maceo got possession of the ball also, they were very key not to overexert themselves, meaning push the tempo of the game, because they knew playing a fast-tempoed game would play into Glenmuir's hand. And they were very deliberate. When I saw it in the first half, I was saying, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And then it came to me that, yeah, this is a tempo matter, because Andrew Peart, he likes to have control and likes a particular tempo. And when you slow down that tempo, it affects the rhythm of the team. And they were very successful in getting that kind of advantage in that front.
Smart.
Yeah, I mean, it's football. Now, some persons will look at it and say, it's not the kind of football that you want to see in a semi-final.
You want to win in a semi-final.
Exactly. And Garvey Maceo, they played to their strengths. They didn't have the kind of attacking firepower that Glenmuir has. They don't have the fast wingers that Glenmuir has. So they definitely have to play in a way that gives them an opportunity, a fighting chance. And they did that very well. Very disciplined performance from Garvey Maceo. And kudos to Lester Hibbert and his coaching staff.
Yeah, talking about Lester Hibbert and his coaching staff, how significant is this for Garvey Maceo from that standpoint? Because the last time they won the title, Murren Gordon was the head coach. He's now the national assistant coach. But they've put together this coaching staff having this type of success.
Yeah, I mean, that's very significant. Murren Gordon still having a lot of input in the development of the program. He's still the technical director. But he is so willing to step back and give other individuals, as he says in his own words, a boost, right? And I think that's huge for him, because many other persons would still hold on to that position and solidify themselves as a top schoolboy football coach. But for him, he wants a program and other coaches to get the experience. So Lester Hibbert getting that opportunity, it's big. It augurs well for local football generally, and certainly for schoolboy football.
Yeah, let's talk about Glenmuir now, because they play the Champions Cup final on Saturday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then they're back in action on Wednesday for another massive encounter. How much do you think the relatively short turnaround, and I have to use the term relatively short, had to do with last night's result and what we saw overall from the Glenmuir team?
I think it had a significant impact on how Glenmuir were able to conduct themselves. Not only Glenmuir, but other teams were staying close to Glenmuir. I think even beyond what they played last week, November 30, and in the Wednesday of that week as well, when they played that heavy underfoot conditions for the quarter-final run of the Champions Cup, I think that perhaps had a greater toll than even the other games, because playing in the rain, there's a lot more effort you need. Just try to run in the rain on grass versus, playing tennis on a nice surface, Ricardo. You can imagine the difference that the toll that it takes on your legs. So I think that had a serious impact. Had it not been that they played under rainy conditions, I don't think we'd be talking so much about that. I think their legs would have been spared from some of the heavy toil that it underwent. But nonetheless, you still train for moments like this. You still train. You still had a lot of rainy games in the opening stage of the competition, so you do get a workout of sorts. But I think it had some impact, but I don't think that's the overall determining factor.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've been thinking about this since last night, and maybe it is because Glenmuir, the favourites for the title, and I think the team that many felt was the best team in the country, ended up losing. And I guess even if the competition or the competitions were ordered differently, then that could also happen. And I don't know if I'm reaching here, but should we go back? When I say go back, should we have a situation where all the semi-finals are completed before you contest any of the finals, meaning that when you get to finals time, it should just be the DaCosta Cup, Manning Cup, Walker Cup, Ben Francis Cup, and Champions Cup finals all following each other, as opposed to in this case where you had a massive Champions Cup final and then a few days later you go backwards with a semi-final.
Yeah, I think that's a better arrangement from an administrative perspective. I think that the fans will appreciate that much more, because you're following, you keep on following, and then you see final after final. Now you have a big Champions Cup final. A lot of persons are invested in it because of the clash between the DaCosta Cup teams and Manning Cup teams and the history of those rivalries. So you kind of lose interest when you, or for some people, you lose interest when you see that, all right, that has been settled. The Liver Shield doesn't really matter as much in some people's mind because of that. I do think there are some individuals who favor for me personally, I favor the Champions Cup over the Olivier Shield. I recognize the historical value of it, yeah, because it was the first competition even before the name Manning Cup came about. But from a true modern day standpoint, where all-island standpoint, I think the Champions Cup is that trophy.
Well, let me just say, because I mean, I didn't grow up in Jamaica. I didn't study here, nor did I go to school, right? So
but I'm sure you're enjoying it.
No, I love it. I love it. But I'm just speaking from like an outsider perspective, just to put that out there.
Yeah.
I'm saying now, what about the people that are, not subject to changing things? They're stuck in their way, and they like that, because the truth is there are many people when it comes to format. So like, let's just say the current Champions League format. As a little girl, I've grown up loving the old format.
Okay.
There is nothing these Champions League people can do to me right now to sell me this new format. I have trouble every day trying to read the new table because I'm so mentally stuck. So you get what I'm saying, right?
I do understand that, But, you know, the implementation of VAR really shows that we have to be willing to adapt to certain changes, right? Because there are some persons from the old school, they hate VAR to the core. But
it's supposed to help the game. But to be honest, the amount of instances that it has hurt the game, people get upset.
I do get that. But, all right, so let's go back to, you know, the unwillingness to change. Now, I can understand from a historical perspective, you're holding on to what you're accustomed to, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't new things that bring a different dynamic.
But
for me, even using the Champions League, I am absolutely in love with this new format. I love it to the core. Love it.
Okay, well, that just means you're just like subject to change randomly.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. Let's continue.
And I want to talk about spreading out the excitement as well. So, like, you get a Champions Cup final, you had like a brilliant weekend, right? And then you go back to your regular format because you have something else to look forward to. You all are talking about like lining up all the finals at one time. So when all the finals is over, what happens after that?
The season is done.
The season is done.
But you think that would keep the interest of the viewers, just like a whole heap of finals?
For me, and why I've suggested it, it's not from an interest perspective, because personally I think the interest will be there regardless. For me, it's about thinking of what is best for the teams and the players who are involved and trying to find a way as best as is possible to get them adequate recovery time. Now, I do understand that you will say, well, 3 days, 4 days apart should be adequate enough between games, but we're talking about the toughest part of the season where you are playing the best teams that are around in the island, either in the Manning Cup or the DaCosta Cup or in the All-Island Knockout. And so I would prefer a situation where you don't have a 3-day turnaround between a final and then a semi-final, or even 2 finals.
So, like, how much would you rather the turnaround to be? Just to ensure, as you said, you're thinking about the players, which is very important.
Like at this stage?
Yeah.
Between a semi-final and a final, at least 5 days.
Yeah, for
between
recovery.
Finals, at least 5 days.
I mean, a lot of coaches say the science says 72 hours is really necessary. Now, when you have 4 days, that gives you an additional day as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
also consider this, right? When you win a final, regardless, there's going to be some amount of celebrations.
Of course.
That takes a lot out of you as an individual as well. So you're essentially saying, well, yeah, win the title, but don't celebrate because you have a semi-final in 3 days.
Do you think it takes away from
it? It takes away. Okay. One quick one before we have to go. I have to ask Dean this, right? Because every time I turn on my television, this kid is doing a football game. And in schoolboy football, he's always doing a KC match.
Oh,
and he's a KC past student. So I just wanted to get an idea of what it's like to be covering your school in that way. I know what it's like because I had to do it for Calabar and Champs when they won 7 years in a row. Never I was fair.
He had to rub that in 7 years in a row.
But yes, what's it like? What's it like?
So what I have, you know, tried to do is look on football just from a football perspective. Is football being played? No, I mean, growing analytically, it's not been difficult.
But so as a KC man, because you all have a different type of love and passion for your school.
So, as a KC man, it's painful when KC isn't playing well. But I am able to separate the emotion from the reality of what's happening.
So what's about this shirt color today that you came on the show?
What?
This has nothing to do with KC. I mean, I could have come with my KC colors, but, you know, I
one quick one. Have you been dragged in the dirt about any of your commentary?
Not in a demeaning manner. There are individuals who have said to me, some of my classmates from sixth form. One of them posted, "Ensure you do well, because you don't want Churchill," that's my nickname, in high school, to commentate on you.
Did you hear the commentary, Lance?
I think I did. When they were upset?
Yes. Dragged in the dirt.
Why did he have to bring that in?
What else was said?
I think he's been waiting for you to join us on set.
Kicked around. They're on crutches now.
Oh dear.
Talking about Kingston College.
That's how we ended it. Oh my.
Is this how we end this segment?
I don't want to end the segment like this.
We should.
I think we should end it on a more positive term. Kingston College is in the Manning Cup final.
All right, thanks for that, Dean. But we've been following very, very closely. Viewers, here's a reminder that the urban area competitions conclude on Friday at the National Stadium in a championship doubleheader, beginning with the Walker Cup final between Mona High and Excelsior High at 3 p.m. Jamaica time for ECT on SportsMax 2 and the SportsMax app, followed by the Manning Cup final between first-time finalists in Catherine and 16-time champions Kingston College at 6:15 p.m. Jamaica time, 7:15 ECT, also on SportsMax 2 and the SportsMax app. Great time.